You gotta be. Come on.
I'm here.
Are you cold?
A little bit. Go.
No, I'm not going. Take that off.
Okay.
What's so mean?
Hi, welcome to Wedding Wednesdays. My name is Patrice Hunt, and this is my husband, Marcus Hunt.
Hey guys.
Today we're going to talk about vulnerability. You
All
remember? Right. Okay. I think that the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I really feel like this was something that I used to struggle with. Just because I don't know why. I think I just found it hard to just be like vulnerable and like express myself. And I still feel like I struggle with it sometimes. Just being.
You mean in general?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just being, showing my emotions and things like that. Like even to the point where like it was one time when I was across the street at our neighbors and like we were talking about something and it got me and I started to get emotional about it. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna see you later. And I just left like middle of the conversation. We were not done talking. I was just like, all right then. Peace out. And I left. So
all right.
But so I think, I think it's something that we can definitely struggle with. And I don't think that we just struggle with it outwardly with other people. We also struggle with it in our marriages.
Okay.
With being open to our spouses and really communicating what we need and how we feel to our spouse. I think sometimes that comes from different, maybe things that you've dealt with, in childhood, feeling like your feelings and hurts were not validated.
Okay.
Or feeling like you were maybe made fun of because you have feelings or somebody. Like, do you ever feel like boys are told, like, if they're emotional or if they react in a certain way, that they are called girly or sissy or weak or like be like, oh, man up?
Yeah, that's the culture. I think that's what's put out there. Shut up, nobody cares. Work harder, keep that to yourself. That kind of thing. But I'm interested in you telling me why you feel like you can't say something.
What you mean? Like in general?
Yeah, just in general. Is there a fear?
I think I feel like I do honestly feel like I'm supposed to be strong.
Okay.
And I do feel that there is a safe space to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
But I sometimes feel like that's my only safe space to be vulnerable. Like, and I don't know why. Something I got to deal with. So it was something I have to work through.
Okay.
But I do definitely feel like, I think maybe over the past like couple of years, I've gotten better, but not a whole lot.
All right. All right. Well, let me ask this. Do you see that in me?
No. Oh, no.
You don't think I'm vulnerable?
No. I thought you meant like a lack of vulnerability. No, I definitely think that you're vulnerable. I feel like I can learn from you as far as vulnerability is concerned. I feel like you definitely express yourself and say what you feel and express what you need and desire and things like that. And if you're struggling or if you're going through something, I feel like you tell me. Mm-hmm. And I think that your vulnerability is helping me kind of open up with you, at least a little bit.
But see, this goes back to year one of marriage for me. I can't expect you to know what's going on in my head
Right.
and then get mad at you when you don't respond how I would like for you to respond.
Right.
So I have to share.
Yeah.
I have to communicate. And it's not easy. I mean, more so it is now.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy to begin with.
In the
just
beginning.
to open up and say, I need help. You know, I can't do this because, the world says that you're a man. You need to, handle that. You need to man up. And sometimes we need help. Sometimes we need to just talk about it.
Yeah.
And if I can't talk about it with you, but I can go and say something to, one of my male friends or something like that. I mean, okay, I get that, saying something to them, but you're my best friend. Why I can't say something to you?
Oh,
I know it.
you're my best friend too.
So I just think that for me, as of late, I will say as of late, I can share.
Yeah.
I can share. And I just think that, with that, even through my men's group, I mean, they're seeing that, and I think we're able to learn from each other when you open up and share those experiences, and you're able to share your testimony, because you may be able to help somebody, but that puts you in a vulnerable spot.
Right.
And you don't know if somebody's going to judge you or try to hold something over your head.
Right.
And, so that makes it tough to open up. So I get it. I just wanted to hear why you would, feel that way.
Yeah. I feel like in the beginning, when we first got together, like I think it kind of goes back to what we talked about. I think it was that last week when we were talking. I don't remember. The weeks are flooding together with me now. But like how in the beginning, I wanted you to like me. I wanted you to, I wanted this to work out and things like
Okay.
that. So it was some things that I would do that maybe I did. Yeah, that was last week that I wouldn't like to do. So I think it was like some instances in that vein where like I wouldn't necessarily say something about something that bothered me just to keep the peace or whatever in the beginning and things like that. But the only problem with it starting like that, then it kind of becomes a habit and you just keep stuff to yourself.
Okay.
So there were times when I would just be like, what was the point of saying something? It'll be all right, or I'll just ignore it this time and it'll be okay. It'll, brush it under the table. I don't want to start nothing. It's not the time to say something about it. And so I don't think I think that even though that doesn't seem like a lack of vulnerability, it is a lack of vulnerability because I wasn't expressing something that I should have been expressing, know? So yeah, I think that's a form, a form of vulnerability. And I think another, like when you asked me why I feel like I can't be vulnerable, and I said because I feel like I should be strong. I think a lot of people think of being vulnerable as being weak.
Okay.
But it's not a weakness. But I feel like sometimes
you view yourself as being weak.
I feel like
if you're vulnerable, you view yourself as being weak.
I feel like I should just suck it up.
Okay.
Like warm it up, get over it, move on, or do this when you're alone.
How's that been working out?
I mean, it ain't the best.
I'm just asking.
But also, I prefer, I don't like to cry. I don't like to cry in front of people. So
I can't help it now.
I know. You better than me. I cannot. I just don't. Well, I don't. I think because it's just like that intimacy. I don't know. I just feel like I need to be in a safe place. So
it depends on what it is.
Yeah.
Because we both cried.
Oh yeah, at the movies.
Yeah, and I was just glad that it was dark. Because at first I was just doing this, trying to do that every now and then, just touch my eye, and then before I knew it, I was just sitting there just crying. So I was like, "Well, it's dark. Just let it happen." So it depends on the
context.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I
All
agree
right.
too. Because like I don't think I had an issue with crying at that movie. I just think maybe, and I don't have well, no, because if something comes up, like we're coming up on the anniversary of Latoya,
Yeah,
I know I'm gonna
on the
cry.
4th.
I know 110% there will be some point in time during that day that I'm going to cry. Nobody will probably see it. It'll be probably one of those things that I like go in the closet
Yeah.
or like do it while I'm in the shower or something like that. But I don't know. Anyway, but we're supposed to be talking about this from a marriage
We are. We are. We
perspective.
are. I just, you know, I I haven't looked at it in that term of you being weak. I know you don't like to show emotion, um, but I never just put two and two together like that. You know, if you cry, then I know something is up. If you're sharing, I definitely know something is up. But I never looked at it like that. I always just thought, yeah, she's trying to be strong, and I just leave it at that, and I don't push it. I don't ask because you might be on the verge of breaking. So I don't ask. I let you have it, and I just walk away, or I'll sit and watch you just in case you need me for something. But but I didn't look at it that way. But now that we're talking about it, yeah, I can see that being an issue
I
for
think
you. It's not an issue for
I think it
me.
came about like from when I was little, and I felt like maybe all the stuff that I never talk about that that I've gone through and things that have been that have happened in life, and then just feeling like, but I mean, people have it worse, you know.
Yeah.
So get over it.
All right.
So I don't know.
We'll talk about that.
Off camera.
Yeah, we'll talk
Now I'm gonna have to have a therapy session
Yeah.
with Marcus.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
But anyway, about vulnerability in your in your marriage and things like that. One of the things I was thinking about was just like, in order to be vulnerable in your marriage, you need to be vulnerable with yourself, be vulnerable with God, and then that'll open the door for you to be vulnerable with your spouse.
Right.
Because I feel like if you're vulnerable with yourself, then you're honest with yourself about your shortcomings or things that you're struggling with, or things that you desire, and the desires that you feel like maybe even within your own self that are not being met. Like if you have a dream or something that you feel that you want to pursue, but you're not pursuing, but you don't really dig deep down and see why it is that you're not pursuing it, and things like that. So if you're not honest with yourself and vulnerable with yourself about where you stand, then that's where the ability to be vulnerable stops. Because first you have to be honest with yourself and vulnerable with yourself. And then from that honesty and vulnerability, you got to take it to God and be vulnerable with him with where you're lacking and where you're falling short as far as your relationship with him, as well as the things that you have going on that you've recognized when you were being vulnerable with yourself. Then take that to him in prayer. And then once you do that, then it opens you up to be more vulnerable, I think, with the people that are around you.
Yeah. I agree. I think you have to start with self first and be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned before, previous week about breathing underwater, the book, that chapter 4, that shadow boxing, identifying those moral defects. What I learned in that was your ego. Your ego will not allow you to see yourself in a bad light. So you can sit there and lie to yourself. God knows the truth,
Mm-hmm.
but you'll lie to yourself, and then that works its way into your prayer. And now the prayer that you're praying is not an honest prayer.
Yeah.
You're still allowing your ego to cover up and have you to think that, well, what I'm doing is not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
I could handle it. I don't need the help with this.
Yeah.
I just need a couple of more weeks and I'll get it together. And so the ego is that, it's that thing that's not going to allow you to be honest with yourself. Now, if you can break that down, move the ego aside and truly be honest and identify your shortcomings,
Mm-hmm.
and then express that, just express that to God, and ask God to help you in those areas. And then I think once you're able to do that, and again, you get the horizontal right,
Mm-hmm.
I then think it's a little
Vertical.
easier. Vertical. I'm sorry. I did this and said wrong. It's late. But get the vertical right. I think to get the horizontal, that will come. I just think that with the horizontal, now you're talking about more so of trusting the
Person you're with. Yeah.
or the circle you're dealing with. So, but I do believe that, you have to have that starting point, and you have to be honest with yourself, and then therefore you're being honest with God.
Mm-hmm.
And now maybe we could see that,
in the relationship. And I think a lot of times what happens too in relationships in general, but also especially in marriages, is that you're bringing baggage from past relationships,
mm-hmm.
and you're putting it on the other person.
Yeah.
And so your lack of ability to be vulnerable with your spouse often comes from maybe when you were vulnerable with somebody else in the past,
mm-hmm.
and your feelings, you weren't feeling validated and you weren't feeling heard, or you were being criticized for being vulnerable, or you were being attacked.
Yeah.
Or once you were vulnerable with somebody, they began to be on the defensive and then like flip it around on you and make it seem like it was like if you brought an issue to somebody and you were like, this is what I really feel. I feel when you do this, this makes me feel like this. And then they switch it around and make it your fault.
Yeah.
Like, I think all of those things can cause you to put up a wall, which makes it hard for you to be vulnerable with somebody, with your spouse.
Right.
But then how do you think you get to the point where you can tear down that wall? Because it's not like, in order to really have true intimacy, you have to be able to be vulnerable with your spouse.
Yeah.
You have to be like, they have to be your safe space.
Yeah. But I think that if you have that wall, I feel like it's probably warranted, whether from past experiences or not. But I wonder if that wall also exists between you and God.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sharing that info, or are you just, well, God knows my heart. God knows what didn't happen. He, that kind of thing, versus, coming to him and opening up to him. I know I've been a victim of that in the past of, oh, well, God knows, so I brush over that. And that's the main thing that I need to be digging into, is that. But I think that if just to look at it from that standpoint, if you do have a wall up, how far does it go? Do it exist between you and God as well? And if not, then I think from that standpoint, we have to assess the relationships.
Because what is it about?
Yeah, what am I doing to make you put that wall up?
Right.
And then that's the conversation, like you were just stating, like, well, you open up to me to say, well, okay, maybe I'll say this just to see where it goes. Babe, when you do this, I feel this way. Now, based off of that response,
how you respond.
If I say, well, I was unaware, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That was just a typical response. That's not what I'm meaning when I say that. Now that may allow you to
Open up a little more.
and then go a little bit further.
Yeah.
But yeah, I get that. But if you say, whatever to me, well, I'm only doing that because you doing it,
then that
kind of
makes
thing.
the wall
Yeah.
go
So,
higher.
but again, I think that's the communication piece of it. And for me, it's, we're a team. So it's
Yeah.
not, I need to know if you're not, if you're not good mentally,
Right.
what can I do?
To help.
Not you
Or
telling
support.
me, not you telling me and I'm trying to fix it.
Right.
I need to hear it and then see what it is that you're asking. If you're asking, if you just need me to listen to you while you talk, I can do it.
Mhm.
That kind of thing. Because as a man, we want to fix.
Yeah.
We
But I
wanna
don't think
fix.
it's just y'all, because I'm guilty of that.
But I'm just.
I want to be like, see a problem, fix the problem, and move on.
Mhm.
But every problem can't be fixed.
Yeah.
And every problem don't need to be fixed. And sometimes you just need to sit in it.
Yeah.
And then allow it to be an issue that you both know exists. Like if it's something that we're disagreeing on,
Mm-hmm.
there might not be a reconciliation in that problem. It might be something that we always, for the rest of our marriage, disagree on that thing. And it don't mean that we have to argue about it. It just means that this is where you stand because you are a person with your own thoughts, feelings, and opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is where I stand because I am a person with my own thoughts and opinions. And unless it's something that's foundational for our marriage, then it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But at the same time, too, I feel like it could go the same way, like when God shows you something. It's almost like you could have been, I'm looking for the remote to the TV. I done looked all over the place. And as soon as I just sat down and just, I don't know where this thing is, and I throw my hand down and it's right there. Or, I've been searching, trying to find a job, trying to do this or do that. And then you've been calling everybody, not answering phone calls and calling everybody. You're trying to do things. And then when you just kind of just stop and just relax, and then you make a phone call or you receive a phone call and it seemed like it was just that simple. All I had to do was this.
Mm-hmm.
All I had to do was look right here, and that I could have did that a long time. It wasn't meant for you to see it then.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, sometimes whether it's a disagreement, and that's fine. Like you say, both parties can have their belief and their, ideal of how something should be or how it should go. I just think that in that, I still need to respect you enough to see your point of view. I may not agree. If something comes up, I know how I could respond, and I know how you would respond.
Right.
And my response is going to always be based off of having compassion toward you.
Right.
In that. And so, but like I said, if it's not a foundational thing, and if it is a foundational thing, I still feel like we have the foundation to go back to work through it.
Right.
So, I just, from a marriage standpoint, I think we do have God with us,
mm-hmm.
and we both recognize that. And so I feel as if where I'm strong at and you're not so strong, okay, I can cover that,
mm-hmm.
and vice versa. And where we both need, even when we think we're strong, but where we both need prayer, we know where to go.
Right.
We know, we know who holds it. So, I think that's it.
Yeah. I was, for the scripture that I brought from was like, okay, so when we got married, we had everybody do, well, not everybody, but it was a lot of people from our wedding got up and did a toast. It was like 15 people. It was a lot. But one of the people who got up and said a toast was my uncle. And he quoted this scripture, which is in 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 9. And it says, but he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness so that Christ's power may rest on me. And so at the point in time, he said, my uncle made a reference to the woman, being the weaker of the weaker vessel of the two, between the two, and how, the relationship is perfected through the weakness and things. But in this sense, with vulnerability, I feel like that it's like God saying, Paul saying the area in my life that I am weak, God can use that area in my life to make me stronger. So like if it's something I'm struggling with, or if it's somewhere that I feel down about or discouraged about, or if I'm like really feeling like I can't, like once I take that to him, then he can strengthen me up in that area. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean he's going to take that away. It might be something that I always have to be intentional to him. It's kind of like the thorn is your ministry thing that I talk about in the book. Mm-hmm. Like if it's something that you constantly see God like bringing you reminders of, and things that you're constantly struggling with, then maybe that's that point, that part of you that he's going to, show up the biggest in your life in. And so I think that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable with our spouses, then God strengthens our marriage through that weakness or vulnerability, even though vulnerability is not weakness, but it's the weaker spot in the, in your facade. Yeah. It's the place where you need reassurance or to be built up. Yeah. Being vulnerable. And I think that it's important just to be vulnerable, just because if you don't allow yourself to really like tell your spouse what you need or what you're lacking, or if something is making you upset, I have no problem with that part. I don't think. I don't know. But but like if you are afraid to just like express yourself, then how can your marriage really flourish into what God would have it to be? Yeah. If you can't. And so knowing this, I have to be very intentional to be like, okay, it's okay to cry with Marcus. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, Marcus made me so mad because you made me so mad because of such and such, or, because you're a safe space for me to come and tell my feelings and my thoughts and my fears, mm-hmm. or my dreams too. And I think that that's important. Like I think that you always are very open with expressing yourself, your desires and your thoughts and your dreams and your feelings and things like that. And so with doing that, that lets me know areas in life that I can pray for you, that where I can shore you up and things like that. And so, but if you don't feel comfortable in your marriage to talk or to be open and vulnerable, then it makes it harder for you to, like you said, communicate. Yeah. And I think it makes it harder to have intimacy because you're not free. Yeah. Do you agree?
Yeah. I think I think that if in a marriage, I know like for me or for men that I've been able to speak with on this very topic, they don't feel like they're being a man. It's like
if they're being vulnerable.
If they're being vulnerable. If you can't handle something, you can't provide, and then it kind of messes with your manhood. Mm. So the urge to be with your wife, mentally, you may have the thought, but you're just not there. Mm. Just because you are lacking in those areas, and just from a standpoint of misunderstanding that you have a weakness, you're not weak.
Right.
And not being able to communicate that, whether out of fear to your spouse, and then you bring that to your brothers in Christ that you trust, and feel a little bit more freely of sharing,
Right.
and you get some godly wisdom. It's still, you have the choice to put that in action. But once you're face to face with your spouse, and sometimes the words don't come out, and it's like, again, when you don't communicate it, but I feel like I'm showing you signs and I want you to ask, and then you don't, then I get mad at you for not asking.
Because I should have asked.
Yeah, you didn't even ask me what's wrong. I know, that kind of thing. And even then is, we just have to be honest. We have to just open up and communicate, because we're not mind readers. And then we can't, honestly, we won't be able to fix it. It's nothing. It's nothing to fix from a standpoint of me trying to fix what it is that you're saying. I think it's more so me just being open and available to you to receive exactly what it is that you're communicating. And I think as a spouse, that's all I can do. And then once I know what's going on, now I can pray and try to pour that back into you.
So what is it, do you think, like, is there something you think that we can do as wives if our husbands are feeling like, or we feel like our husbands are not opening up to us, or we feel like we may notice that he seems like something is wrong, but he's not talking about it? Like, what is something that you would say would be beneficial, like, for a wife to do? Like, do you think she should broach the subject? Like, you seem like something wrong. Because sometimes it could be like, you seem like something wrong. And then he could get defensive.
Yeah. I think it's a timing thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think even if he gets defensive initially, if he's a real man about it and he does get defensive, he's going to come back. I apologize for that. That wasn't cool. That wasn't directed at you. I was mad at myself, and this is why. And open up and say something. But I think that advice wise for the wives, I would say, if you see something, not right, kind of out of place with him, he seems down, just, you don't necessarily have to, you can ask a question, not saying not to do that, but, there's nothing wrong with going over, just sitting beside him, rubbing his back, rubbing his head. Baby, it's going to be okay. Whatever it is, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And, I'm here. We can handle it. We pray about it, put it up to God. We can go through it.
Yeah.
That kind of, not even knowing what it is, that in and of itself is the weight off the shoulders. Like me wanting and needing to quit that job.
Right.
A lot of that pressure was released when I called and you said, "Are you on your way home?" Now it's like, I deep, that's a sigh of relief that I could now breathe, knowing that, okay, my wife is cool. She's cool. No, not like cool. She's cool. She's cool with this. She's cool with me making this decision, because she also knows what that decision means for the family and what that's about to bring. And the only reason why I'm still doing this is because I'm thinking about the family, but I'm going against what God is putting on me, and it's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
But having that support, knowing that your spouse has your back and is ready to stand in the middle of anything with you, whether he's ready to open up or not, knowing that you have his back, hey, we can take it on, we can take on whatever.
Yeah.
That's kind of how that is. I mean, we're we're ready to go and jump into anything at that point, knowing that we got that support.
Right.
And but sometimes we as men, hey, we don't articulate that.
Yeah.
We just, we want you to be able to read our mind, provide what it is that we need without asking, and then at the same time know when to step back and let us go. So
that's a lot.
Figure it out, ladies. Figure it out. You got to be able to know these things.
You got to be psychic, proactive, and everything else,
and superwoman at the same time. So it's like, and then sometimes when the stress and the world is beating us down that way, it seems crazy. We can laugh about it. Some people, some guys actually need that, be wanting that, for you to be all of that without them saying a thing.
Yeah.
And then when you're not, they get mad at you for that.
Yeah.
And then start to pull away because you never really knew me.
Even though I said no words.
I had nothing to say. So it sounds crazy, but that's what that is. That's why, I try to over communicate, because I can't get mad at you for something you don't know.
Right. But I don't think that it's just a man thing. I think that women do it too. Yeah. I think that women will be like, I want him to do help out around the house. And don't he see that I'm doing all this stuff and I'm tired and I'm constantly doing this, that, and the third, and he don't never help, but we never ask. But also, I think that we both, like men and women, both give cues when something's wrong. And so, like you said, just to come over and give that support would be helpful. Yeah. But I think that women definitely do it too. We'll get upset because of what we think should be done, because what we think should be done is not being done.
Yeah.
And so I think that it is important to communicate.
I'm gonna say this, not to
you
go.
You gonna get in trouble?
It's not to go down another. Get in trouble. It's not to go down another. It's just more. I'm gonna say it this way. I think is accepted more
when women do it.
Women do it
than when men do it.
Than when men do it. Yes. Just
is it because we do it more?
Just because it's gonna be looked at like, well, man, my wife, man, she was mad at me, and then it's like, guess what? When I hear him talk, he is gonna be a similar story, something different.
Yeah,
but it's totally different if I'm over there sharing with, my male friend that, hey, man, wife, she didn't cook for me, or she didn't do this, or she didn't do that, or we were supposed to go here and then we didn't go. And it's one thing to state one item, maybe two on an occasion, but to do that how we think you guys do it, then it comes off, man, you might want to check yourself, that kind of thing. It's like, oh man, you're sounding feminine. That's how that comes
like that
off.
Thing making it seem like weak.
Again.
Yeah, because your thoughts or desires or needs are not being met. And then when you try to express that, share it with your peers, then it makes it seem like you're less than.
So that's why I say I still share with my guys, but I'm sharing something with them as secondhand because I've already talked with you about it.
Right.
And if it's...
Hey, you guys, we have really been going deep into this conversation about vulnerability. So we kind of ran long. So join us next week for part 2 of our topic and conversation on vulnerability. See you next week. Bye.